He's Ross Tucker from Westwood One, CBS Sports, the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, and he's got a doubleheader coming up this weekend. Browns at the Raiders for CBS on Sunday, Titans-Dolphins for Westwood One on Monday night. Good to talk to you. Before we get to the NFL, let me ask you about this UNLV situation and the quarterback, Matthew Sluka, deciding that he's going to leave. What do you think is going on here from the NIL perspective?
Yeah, well, first I would just say, Dan, I think the whole situation's incredibly sad. I mean, I really do. This is obviously not what the young man wants to do, right? I mean, they're 3-0. They're undefeated. They have 2 wins on the road against Big 12 teams, Power 4 teams. This is the best start in UNLV history. He just transferred in from Holy Cross, Patriot League FCS. Right now he's playing these big games on TV. They're winning. They're top 25. But it sounds like, from what his dad has said, that he was promised $100,000. They've continued to ask for it. He's never gotten it. They gave him $3,000 to move, and that's been it to this point. And here's what's interesting about it to me, Dan. You know, this is his last year of eligibility. And the way college football works now is if you only play 3 or 4 games in a season, you can maintain that year of eligibility. He's not going pro. I've done a couple of his games, Dan. He's a really good college quarterback, okay? He runs it well. He doesn't throw it well enough. So this is his last year to try to capitalize on his hard work and his God-given talent, all those things. I suspect that he'll get somewhere between $500,000 and $1.5 million to be a starting quarterback for a Power 4 school next year. He probably recognizes that. I mean, he had other options out of Holy Cross. I don't know why he picked UNLV. There's probably a bunch of reasons, but one of them was for the $100,000. And he goes there, and they're winning. They're running him 10 to 15 times a game. He's getting the crap beat out of him. He keeps asking for his money, and they keep saying, we'll give it to you, we'll give it to you, we'll give it to you. And he finally realized it's not happening, and this is his last year to try to make some money from football while he can. He knows the market. He knows what these other kids are getting. I honestly, if he were my son, I hate everything about it, but he'd be doing the exact same thing.
Well, I'm trying to understand how this works, that if a coaching staff can entice you, they can't say, here's the money you're going to make. So then the collective is the one who decides how much money you're going to make, and there's not supposed to be any contact connection between the coaching staff and the collective. Right? Is that what I'm supposed to believe? That, hey, we want you to come to UNLV, and he says, how much am I going to get paid? Well, that's up to the collective. We can't tell you anything. So we're supposed to believe that, correct?
I guess.
Okay. So this player, Matthew Sluka, said that he was told by an assistant coach, or his dad was, we're going to give you $100,000. And then he goes to UNLV and keeps waiting for, are you going to pay me? And like, is that how this all works here? That you just go there, can't have anything in writing, no paper trail. I can't. So what if I verbally say we'll give you $100,000? Now everybody denies that. I'm just trying to add logic to this, and I know it's crazy in this business to try to add logic. It just doesn't add up. That he would leave, and he's a very good quarterback. And he could have made more money elsewhere. He goes to UNLV on a promise. Then he doesn't get paid. Did he try to renegotiate or whatever it is? It just seems pretty wild here.
Yeah, so a couple of things, Dan, that I think are important. Number one, I'm really surprised that UNLV just didn't come up with the $97,000 because that's more or less below market value for what Sluka could get elsewhere. And they've got this special season going. They have a chance to go to the college football playoff. They're the front runner out of the group of 5 schools to go to the college football playoff. I mean, they have a chance to change UNLV football forever. They've got a coach in Barry Odom who's probably going to get a Power 4 job this offseason. I'm a little surprised that somehow UNLV didn't say, let's give him the money because we got special things going on, and it's a real bad look for us if he leaves. My guess is, Dan, they didn't think he would actually leave. They didn't think he would actually do it. This kid's from Holy Cross. He's from Long Island, where we're a top. He's not going to actually do it. Well, he actually did it. And here's the thing that really bothers me. Two things that are important, Dan, because I have a recruiting business, so I talk to some of these kids and parents and coaches, whatever. This is happening a lot more than people realize, where kids are going to colleges and they're not getting the money they were promised. A lot of them just suck it up and stay there. Sluka and his dad said, you know what? We're not going to take it. We're not going to just take not getting the money. But I'm so sad for them because they don't want to be the face of this. They don't want to have to do this. And what about the other UNLV players? You know, they got a chance to have a special season. What about the UNLV fans? I mean, everything about it just makes me very, very sad because college football has basically become the pros. And if you follow high school football like I do, high school football and the recruiting has basically become college football. I mean, high school is now more or less college with the recruiting of the eighth graders. College is now more or less the pros. At least the pros we know are the pros.
All right. You're a Princeton grad. Give me a structure here for the NIL with these players, with agreements, contracts, the collective, communication between the collective and the coaching staff.
Step one is collective bargaining. I don't think there's any way around it, right? So collective bargaining, they're more or less taking the first steps because now athletic departments, Dan, are able to fund NIL up to $22 million, right? $22 million a year is the cap they put on it. And then collectives can go above and beyond that. But now, you know, I mean, these schools have payrolls now, right? Like the Power Four schools, they have payrolls. You get this if you're a freshman, this if you're a sophomore. Trust me, I know there are programs at times that it's been tight whether or not they can meet payroll. So we're already doing it, right? We already have a salary cap, $22 million. We already have payroll. Now let's sit down. The problem is, I don't know who is the players association to collectively bargain, right? In the NFL, we have the NFL, NFLPA. I don't know how you get together with the college players or who necessarily represents them, but they got to sit down and say, okay, here's the NIL rules, here's the money, here's the transfer rules. They more or less just have to look at it like it's professional football at this point and put those guardrails in place, which can only really happen through collective bargaining.
We're talking to Ross Tucker. You can check him out on social media at Ross Tucker NFL. He'll have the Browns and the Raiders on Sunday, then the Dolphins and the Titans on Westwood One on Monday night. You got football tonight. Dallas needs a clean win. Like just one of those, no mistakes. They look great. Stop the run. Couple of touchdown passes. Everybody's happy. A couple of sacks for Micah Parsons. How likely is that to happen tonight?
Boy, I don't know, Dan. It's been pretty ugly for them the last couple of weeks. They really can't run the ball at all, which in today's day and age of the NFL, with all of the soft zone looks, you know, you really need to be able to run the ball when they're playing the two deep safeties. Cowboys can't run it a lick. Maybe part of that is because they have the worst running back room in the entire NFL. We knew that coming into the year. That's what it is. They lost Tony Pollard. They didn't replace, they replaced him with Zeke Elliott, who's 4 years past his prime at this point. And then they don't really stop the run either. I mean, they've kind of gotten run over. They're not good run defense. And now they're going against a Giants team that I'm doing the Browns Raiders, as you mentioned. So I watched every snap of that Giants Browns game. First of all, Malik Neighbors is a star for the Giants. Already a star. Daniel Jones looked pretty darn good to me. And I know Saquon has been phenomenal for the Eagles, but the guy that the Giants replaced him with, Devin Singletary, he looks good. I mean, he's playing well.
Wait, are you calling for the Giants to win tonight?
I think there's a very good chance of that, yes. I think the Giants defense sacked Deshaun Watson 8 times. Their D-line is legit. I think it's a toss-up game. I'm taking the Cowboys just because they have to win and because the conversation tomorrow, if the Cowboys lose in the standalone game tonight against the Giants, would be crazy. So I'm going to squint and take the Cowboys. Wouldn't be surprised at all if the Giants win. And I love the Giants with the points, Dan. Love it.
Would you rather be a Panthers fan or a Cleveland Browns fan?
Panthers fan, because
wow,
I would have a tough time rooting for Deshaun Watson, I think, if I were a Browns fan. I think I'd have a tough time with that. Plus, he's under contract, fully guaranteed for 2 more years after this one. Carolina probably will have a high draft choice. Maybe they'll take Shedeur Sanders or one of these college quarterbacks coming out. Jalen Mills. Who knows,
think
right?
I don't think Deion lets his son go to Carolina.
Ooh, that's interesting.
I truly don't. I think Deion is going to navigate this the way Archie did with Eli. And if he can handpick, he's going to handpick the team that's going to take his son. I don't think he's going to let him go down there and try to resurrect Carolina.
Just because he thinks the owner is that bad?
Well, yes, he is. And the team is bad. And you're going to send him in really to the same scenario that Bryce Young went into. And although I don't think it's all on the franchise. I think Bryce Young just didn't play well. And Andy Dalton proved that hey, we can be competitive. They weren't competitive with Bryce Young. And with Andy Dalton there, they're probably going to win more games than they want to. But, if Bryce Young's your quarterback and you're winning, you're like, yeah, our future. They don't have a future right now at that position.
No, and I think, to talk about your question, I think for Carolina, you can see a scenario where starting next year with a new quarterback, they can be competitive and you can kind of rip the Band-Aid on the Bryce Young era. I think in Cleveland, it's not looking like Deshaun Watson's ever going to be what he was. Heck, Dan, it's not looking right now like he'll ever even be a top 20 quarterback, let alone a top 5 quarterback. And they are really hamstrung by that contract the next 2 years. So if he doesn't turn it around, and it doesn't look like he will, maybe he will, but if he doesn't turn it around, the Browns are kind of stuck for a couple years. Whereas at least if you're the Panthers, because of Bryce Young's contract, you don't feel like you're stuck with Bryce Young.
Well, Deshaun Watson used to be able to play his way out of this. He hasn't been able to play his way out of this in Cleveland, and they have spent an awful lot of money. Bill Belichick said the Steelers might have the best quarterbacking situation, which he was being serious when he said it, because I would think the Chiefs probably have the best quarterbacking situation. I mean, right? And Buffalo might have a better situation. Like, there's a lot of teams with a better situation. You have 2 quarterbacks. Now, cost-wise, yes, you have a great situation. But we still don't know if either one can play and be a franchise quarterback. So that's not a great situation for me. Just because it doesn't cost a lot in our quarterback room, the other rooms that it does cost an awful lot, you get somebody who's really good. What do you make of the Steelers' situation?
Well, first of all, the Steelers' defense is awesome. I mean, they've been incredible. That's an interesting perspective. That is a really nice window, Dan, into how Belichick views things, right? Which is to say, the price and the cost always matters, and he's always taking that into account. And in his mind, the Steelers have 2 quarterbacks you can win with. So even if one gets hurt, you can win with the other, and neither one of them are making that much money. So you can have a really good team surrounding them. That's, I think, how he views it. I'll say this. I give Omar Khan, their GM, I give him a lot of credit, because after they got Russell Wilson, Dan, they didn't need to go get somebody else. They could have said, that's our answer. Our answer is Russell Wilson. That's our quarterback upgrade. We're good. Instead, and maybe this is because of whatever happened with Kenny Pickett, and I don't know, there's 2 sides to that story, but instead they went out and they got Fields, and boy, oh boy, are they glad they did. I mean, they're 3-0, great chance to be 4-0. I thought he played by far his best game last week, had a couple of really nice throws. And so the Steelers, what they really gave themselves were options. They took 2 bites at the apple. Rather than just 1 bite at the apple, they gave themselves another chance in case somebody got hurt or someone didn't play well, which is exactly what happened. Russell Wilson got hurt. You still have Fields. You still have a winning starting quarterback in the NFL.
Are you all in on the Buffalo Bills?
Absolutely. I've called all 3 of their games so far. The first one on CBS, the last 2 on Westwood 1. I'll tell you what, I'm not all in on, Dan.
Ross, we've been burned. We've been burned before. We've been down this. This is like the West Coast, East Coast version of the Chargers, and the Chargers are the West Coast version of the Bills. It feels like it's like, God, I want to believe in these guys.
Well, they've burned me the last 2 weeks because the last 2 weeks in the fourth quarter, it's been backups in a preseason game like it's a blowout because that's how good they've been. And it's remarkable. All the guys they lost, Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis and Mitch Morris, all the guys on defense, their 3 best defensive players are all hurt right now. Milano and Terrell Bernard at linebacker, Taron Johnson at nickel. There's just something different about Josh Allen. And I said this during the broadcast Monday, Dan. 2 games in a row, no turnovers, and no plays that were even close to turnovers, but it's more than that. He's getting rid of the ball faster than he did before, and I saw growth. A couple times he ran the ball and slid rather than trying to run somebody over or jump over him. A couple times he ran out of bounds. A couple times he wanted to throw it so bad, instead he threw the ball away. Like, we've always said his ceiling is the highest ceiling, but the floor, there's too many mistakes, turnovers. It's almost like he got the memo or he matured because he's not making those mistakes. If he doesn't make those mistakes, they can be as good as anybody.
He's Ross Tucker. He's a busy man. You can check out the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. And he has the Browns at the Raiders on Sunday on CBS, then Titans-Dolphins for Westwood One Radio on Monday night. Safe travels. Always good to talk to you, bud.
Always. Thank you, Dan. Love the fireplace. That's awesome.
Thank you, Ross. That's Ross Tucker, Westwood One and CBS. The things that matter the most to Ross.